Disney has languished as of recently. They seem to be sitting here sluggishly chugging along, kind of close to their 52-week low in terms of stock price, while every time earnings get released, it seems that shareholders are disappointed with their ability to translate the soaring revenue that they've experienced into increased profitability. The problem with Disney isn't that they aren't, getting people in the parks. Ticket sales are great. Ticket prices are, from what people I know have told me, higher than ever before. And the parks are as crowded as ever before. Disney is a big part of almost everybody's childhood. I grew up watching, Disney animated movies, and I, went on many vacations to Disney as a child. Some of my fondest memories have to do with Disney. And for the longest time, as a publicly traded company, it seemed like they could do no wrong. And they used to consistently churn out some really, I think really impressive and consistent profit margins. They used to be, in terms of their gross margins, between 44 and 46% consistently. Now, you notice that in 2019, that drops to just under 40%. Now, I suspect that Disney's fiscal year for 2019 probably ended in early 2020, and so the tail end of that fiscal year may have seen some of the impacts of them having to shut down cruises, shut down parks, etc. But those businesses are back. And during the pandemic, they built up their Disney Plus subscriptions to a massive level. Blew out all expectations there. Yet, their margins continue to languish in the low to mid 30s in spite of soaring revenue. This is the problem with Disney. The question you have to ask yourself if you're thinking about owning Disney stock is, can you really expect them to get these margins back to those former levels and translate that soaring revenue into new heights for, earnings per share, basically? Now, if they can, it could be a compelling value today, but it also depends on how long it's going to take. Because if you have to sit here and wait another 5 years for it to be worth, today's price in order to make it all work, is it possible that you could have deployed that capital for a better opportunity? Maybe. Is it worth maybe paying a little bit of a premium and giving them a little extra time to, have all of this come to fruition because of their, their moat and, their consistency that they've shown in the past to be able to perform as a business? Maybe. It's hard to compete with Disney. I will give them that. You can't just, give anyone, $150, $160 billion and have them go toe to toe with Disney. Isn't going to happen. That being said, what do the analysts think? Well, it looks to me like the analysts pretty much agree, based on how much they expect the EPS to grow beyond what the revenue is growing, that they probably expect those margins to improve over the next handful of years. That being said, how do you model for Disney? I'm of two minds about this. I mean, I don't want to sit here and necessarily give them credit for these 2027 analyst projections. One, because there's not that many analysts, and two, because analysts are not clairvoyant. They may be more intimately familiar with Disney's business than we in the general public are, and they may be, a little bit more in the know with the management and, what the plans for the future might be and the strategy to get here. But at the same time, 2027 is still a long ways away. A lot of things can go wrong between now and then. But I think if you look a year or so out, they're probably going to be pretty close. And so I sit here and I say, okay, by the end of 2024, they expect it to be just over $5 of earnings. What do they have to accomplish from that point to be a potentially good investment at today's prices? Well, and that's if you're willing, patient enough to sit for a while and wait for them to achieve that. We're kind of in imagination land on that. So basically, they would have to, from 2024's numbers, have a 9% annual growth rate on their earnings over the next 10 years after that, with that dropping to 6 for the subsequent 10 years, to be worth about $88 and change. So around, very close to today's price, at a standard 10% discount rate. Now, with Disney, with it being, potential moat, etc., sometimes people apply a slightly lower discount rate because they're maybe willing to pay a bit of a premium for what Disney brings to the table. It's perceived as potentially a pretty safe place to park your capital because, hey, they're not going out of business, and they have driven their top line revenue up considerably over time, and they certainly think that they can get to profitability on Disney Plus, which certainly will help those margins out a bit. So it really depends on if you think, are they likely to achieve the improvement in their margins that are suggested by these analyst EPS estimates, and if you're willing to be patient enough for them to do so, and you're willing to not necessarily expect a tremendous, gigantic, outsized return over the long run. You're okay with maybe an average to slightly above average return for the moat and the the consistency that you think you can get from something like Disney. That's really where it's at. For me, I'm probably not at the point where I want to jump in too terribly quickly on this. I really need to understand how they're going to get from A to B before I even consider it. But that's really just my opinion. Now, I've heard that they were planning on reinstating the dividend, and if they did that, I would actually expect the stock price to go up in response. I don't know. People always love dividends, and it would get a lot of dividend-focused investors back into the company. I don't think that necessarily changes the long-term value proposition, though. Really, I think it all hinges on getting the margins back up into the mid-40s. And if they can do that, then I think that sky's the limit for Disney, potentially. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Help me out with that YouTube algorithm. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. Also, join to become a channel member if you like me, because it's cheap to do so, and it really helps me grow the channel. Take it easy, everyone, and have a fantastic afternoon.